Hi everyone, welcome back to Talent Order's Breakfast Briefing, Friday, 8th of May 2020. This week I'm joined by Graeme Read, Director at 3R Partnerships, and the theme will be the effect COVID-19 is having on the UK employment market. Graeme, thank you so much for joining me this week. I really appreciate you taking the time to discuss this subject, as I feel it really can support many businesses and their staff during these challenging times. Before I go into any questions, can you give the audience a little bit of background on your career history?
I've been in the hiring industry or profession, I prefer to call it profession, for 30 years. That dates me. I've been through two recessions. The first one was in the early 90s, and then obviously in the late 2000s. So I'm quite averse, I know what that's like and the impact on clients, and importantly the impact on candidates as well. And also from just a general business perspective. But this is different, but that's me.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for that. It gives the audience a little bit of background as to why I'm asking you these questions. So thank you. How do you think the UK employment market will change post COVID-19?
Very differently. Here's the short answer. I think one of the key things is, well, a couple of things. One is candidate reluctance. They don't want to necessarily move.
Yeah.
So that they will be reluctant to move from one employer to another, and that's where end employees really need to work with recruitment companies to engage with candidates, with talent. It will probably be a longer tail than ever before, but as a recruitment company, it's what we do all day long. And employers, I understand where they are, but this is our profession. This is what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Even now, or especially now, candidates are really reluctant to move, and you can completely understand it. If you start a new job, you're working from home, so you don't even get to kind of meet the team. Interview process, you're not going to see the company. It's really difficult, and everything's so uncertain that moving jobs at the moment can definitely be really scary. So
I agree with you 100%.
Sorry, go on. Oh, frozen a little bit there.
Across 20, 30 years.
Sorry, you froze there.
There's always been a lot of...
Sorry, can you start that again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Not a problem. The in the past, a lot of companies have used technology and video, interviews and things like that. From my perspective, that's something to do when you've got a short list or a long list. I think from an employer perspective, it's so essential for a recruitment company to engage with candidates at a really early stage, whether they're ready to move or not ready to move. It's constant contact, and that's one of the key things. We are the bridge between candidates and clients. We know what looks good, what good's like, and likewise from a end employer perspective. So I think we've always been doing that. And I do think that we will bounce back as an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially as a recruiter, I like to meet my candidates. You can build such a better relationship. You can really tell the outstanding candidates from the less outstanding candidates, and you can just know them a lot more when you meet them rather than talking over the phone. So it's definitely a change.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So the next
Within
question.
that, I'd say, sorry, could I expand on that
Yeah,
slightly?
go.
There are going to be some sectors that, some might, really, really struggle. I'm looking at hospitality, retail, travel, potentially, maybe for a small amount, but certainly I think retail's, I think it's not gonna be good for them. I think we've got to get used to, from a business perspective, and it's an overused phrase, the new normal. And from a business perspective, irrespective of what sector you're in, you've got to look at your business plan again. A lot of companies and executives, they need to refresh their business plan, and maybe they need to tweak it, or look at other opportunities. If you're in retail, what else can you do? I know a really well-known retailer that's not really online yet, but they need to be, because that's where the future's already been there, but that's where it's going to be.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So that brings me on to my second question. What should employers be doing to keep staff engaged and retained during this time?
Keep talking. If for those staff that are not furloughed, I think the most important thing is just constant communication. Just keep them up to, it's so easy to watch Sky News or BBC News, and after a couple of hours it scares you. So if someone's working with you, even if it's remotely from home or in an office, it's so important to keep the morale going, because it's so difficult. They've got their own challenges, family, friends, etc. They're not necessarily allowed to go out more than X number of hours or whatever. It's so important for people that you are employed, who are working from home or remotely. It's so important to keep to stay close to your staff. And I'd come back to what I said. Likewise with potential candidates. So obviously one of the things that recruiters, employers need to look at is the do's and don'ts from the furlough system that the government set up. It is, you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed. If you are, if you are in that category, you're not allowed to work, and that's something. And from an end employer perspective, they need to be really careful, because they could be sanctioned. The government could, withdraw, the payments. So it's, how do you do that? And irrespective of what discipline a company is, it could be a technology person in the business, it could be a salesperson in the business. You need to really make your choices wisely on who stays in the business and who takes the government scheme.
Absolutely. And that actually goes straight on to the next question I have. So what advice do you offer those staff who are furloughed?
Stay positive. Stay active. I'm self-employed, so I'm lucky that I can work remotely, and I do anyway. But I wear a suit. Even if you're working from home and you are employed, or even if you're in the scheme, just be active. Just you're allowed to walk to a certain extent. I think government's changing the rules on that, so you can have more. You can go out for more than one time a day. But just be active, because a big part of it is mental well-being.
Absolutely.
If you just put on your TV and just watch whatever program and binge on it, it's not going to help you necessarily. From a home working perspective, I'm fortunate enough to have a space that is my office. For those who are working from home, you've got to dress as if you were going to work. Make sure that you're in the game at 9 o'clock in the morning. Make sure you take your 1 hour lunch, and make sure you clock off at 6 p.m. or whatever hours it is. If you are having to go through the system, you still need to be physically active and mentally active. There's a lot of people that I know who are itching to get back into full-time employment. And this is one of the things I would say, if I was in their shoes, I would make sure that anything that is coming through your desk, i.e. your emails, etc., pass it over to someone who isn't, someone who's still working, because you don't want to have that risk of being sanctioned, either from a corporate perspective or from a individual perspective. Most companies have already written to their staff and said you cannot work, but that doesn't mean you sit in the lounge and binge.
You want to try and
can research. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of organizations, the REC, APSCO, etc., things like that, on what does that really mean? And obviously, by sector, it does change, but there's no clear guidance. So you look at the government websites and just make sure that you're on the right side of the legislation.
Okay, thank you for that. And that brings me on to the last question. So what advice do you offer businesses during this time?
It's like what I said at the beginning, constant contact. If you've got staff working remotely, much like if you were in an office, you'd be checking in with them 3-4 times a day. You'd be looking at what they're doing. You're asking them questions. You're replying to their questions. And it's so lonely for people to work from home. It's a new thing. It's not new in the US, but it is new to a large extent in Europe. So just keep that communication going. For those people who are through the government scheme, you can't do commercial activities with them, but it's essential to just be there, because this is new for them as well as it is for an employer. Just stay there. Just be there for them. How's your day? One of the things I've said to quite a few people who've been furloughed is, when you do have your walk a day, and let's hope you get more, just go out. Go out. I mean, the sun's out. It's out for the next couple of days. Go out, and instead of looking down, and this is a key thing I say to most of my clients, is look up. Look up. Look at the architecture. Look at the buildings. Look at the trees. Look up. There was a supermoon last night, a blood moon, and we won't get another one for a good year or two. those people who were, bilging on whatever, they missed the opportunity because it's not going to come back for a couple of years. So these are the tiny things, and it sounds like really tiny things, but when you put them all together, it adds.
Absolutely.
And it helps for them. It really does help them.
Yeah, I think it is the little things, especially at the moment where there's so much you can't do. Have that team meeting, video, still do kind of social things. Like there are so many quizzes going on. You don't always
I did that with friends. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
We've got a great pub in North London where I am. And we used to go every Tuesday night for quiz night. I was never very good at it, but but it's that interaction. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It could be a quiz night or something like that, and you could do that with staff who've been through the furlough thing. But I'd get your other staff involved as well, and just have a quiz night. You can't do anything commercial. No. We're hoping as an industry that the government will give us better guidance, because it's essential. If you think of from a sales perspective, they need to be able to communicate with their customers, and so that's essential. So we're lobbying the government to do that. But in the meantime, as long as it's not a commercial slant of what they're doing, have a quiz night.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the culture of the company, well, for me, the culture of the company is so important. And
that's
you want to
why
kind of
people join. Yeah, that's why people join an organization. And you've got to keep that. And this is where, senior managers, owners of businesses really need to look at that, and find out new ways of doing things. I keep using this word, new normal. I'm getting used, I don't like it anymore. I've used it too many times. But this is one of the things. There is, however, for people who are working from home, or people who are let go, so to speak, they will still use LinkedIn and things like that. They will still use Google, etc., to update themselves on what's going on. The risk, if you're doing that from a home environment, is the spike in cyber security is huge. And it's not just phishing. It could be everyone thinks it's a PDF. It's actually not. It's a Word document, and it's got something else behind it. So and it goes from banks to whatever. Once someone has has access to your laptop, computer, whatever it might be, it'll then infect you as a country, as a family, and then it'll go through all your contacts. And this is where we're not quite used to doing that in the UK. And if I was an end employer and I'm giving people some laptops and work from home or whatever the case may be, how secure is their network? I've spoken to quite a few people, and my son's upstairs on his Xbox. He uses the same login as me, and that's just not right. The best way to do it is have a guest login from a employment perspective. So that's one of the things. Update your cyber security software, and speak to professionals.
Yeah,
it could be. There might be contractors, that come in for a limited amount of time. If I had small, large, and I think it's small, medium-sized businesses that'll be attacked more so. But every company is now going through a problem. They won't necessarily know it yet, but they do need cyber specialists to really just double check that they've got it, and especially if someone's working remotely, and even if they they're going through the government scheme, they will still be using their network. They'll still be using LinkedIn. They'll still be using other platforms. How secure is that?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Guidance is key.
Absolutely, I think that is a massive risk, and we've actually done a little video on cyber security and those risks. So if anyone is interested to hear about that kind of further, please do check that out. Thank you so much for all of your kind of insights. They are all of my questions for today. Thank you again for taking part. I'm sure our viewers will find it really, really helpful. Again, if any of you have any further questions for Graeme or any ideas for what themes you'd like to hear about next, please email me on amy.morris@talentorder.com or message me via LinkedIn. If you missed last week's breakfast briefing with Gabby Glazner-Cipollone, I will leave the link down below. I hope you're all staying safe and well, and enjoy the bank holiday weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Enjoy the sunshine.